to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast with Newcastle. It is a bit fucking cold here up in Newcastle, I'm not going to lie. It's fight day, Lewis Richardson and O'Hara Davies tonight. I'm joined by Dave Coldwell. What are you doing here, Dave?
I've got Stephen Cairns on, haven't I? What am I doing here, mate? Yeah, Stephen Cairns, my unbeaten young prospect, 20 years old from Ireland, lightweight now. He's boxing on the undercard, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while. He's improved so much in the gym. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, interesting night. We love fight nights here in Newcastle. We've obviously been here over the years with several different fights, and yeah, Lewis Richardson, I think, said it the other day that the build-up possibly should have been and could have been a bit bigger for something like for a domestic clash between Richardson and Davies. It's a huge fight, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, even in the fight week, I was expecting. I know OD turned up the other day with the Man United shirt, etc. Very OD-esque, but yeah, it feels like this should have and could have had a little bit of a bit bigger build-up.
Yeah, it's not really caught fire, but I mean, I saw that interview with Lewis, and I was a bit surprised because he's not really posted anything on his own social medias, because I had Stephen Cairns say to me in the gym, is this fight happening? Because Richardson's not even posted anything about it on his socials. So then for him to say that, obviously it has gone underground, but which is a shame because it is a good fight. But the fighters need to kind of like ignite it as well, get people interested as well. But I think O'Hara's been a little, apart from them wearing the Man United kit, which was a good shout by the way. Apart from that, I don't really think that he's had much to say either. I think both fighters, they probably see that it's a must win, and they're probably both just focused on getting the job done and getting the win for themselves, really.
I mean, listen, we all like a good build-up. We don't like one that's too forced and too kind of perceived as a bit pantomime-y. I mean, I'm saying that from IFL's perspective, and I think to myself, well, we want it to kind of, not kick off, but, you know, the little bit of back and forth between fighters. But, yeah, I think Lewis Richardson isn't that way inclined. And I look at O'Hara Davies and I think that old version of O'Hara Davies where he, you know, I remember when he came to Liverpool to fight Derry Matthews. I mean, that kind of version, which was quite a few years ago now. Obviously, he's got older and that situation's changed. But I don't want it false, but I thought there was, I don't know, those two, you're right, could have just, yeah.
But I just think that you don't have to go over the top and like you said, forced and go to that extent where you're hated. And I know it's not in Lewis' character, but just sticking bits on your social media, promoting the fight, promoting the show, letting people know that it's happening. You know, even if it's like training clips, pictures. It's what 90% of fighters are doing out there at the moment, as it is. But when you've got kids on the undercards thinking, well, the main event's not putting anything on the social media about the fight, is the fight happening? Then of course the fans aren't really going to know about it. Just makes things harder to promote anyway. But ultimately we're here, the fight's happening, it should be a really good fight. It's a good domestic battle really, but it's got a world title eliminator on it, which is fantastic for him. So there's a lot at stake for both those guys.
Absolutely, and I think I've never ever been to a fight night in Newcastle that's kind of disappointed. The fans here are proper boxing fans up this neck of the woods, and love their boxing, and I think tonight, that'll be no different. So
yeah, I hope so. Newcastle fans. I mean, when Richardson was at his highest, the crowd, those atmospheres when they're all chanting and stuff, and even when you got Joe Lowes coming out. I remember, did he make his debut on one of these shows up here? And it just went absolutely nuts. Atmospheres are always good in Newcastle, so yeah, it should be a good night.
Look forward to it tonight. Boxing obviously is, it is generally like a soap opera, isn't it? I mean, every day there's literally something happening, obviously, from last weekend. I know you did an interview on IFL about the whole Saudi Arabia experience with Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. I mean, this week there's the Misfits card, and we keep seeing that plastered all over social media. And I don't know, it kind of has divided boxing to a certain degree in terms of fans. So a lot of people that slate this kind of stuff, I still think are kind of half watching it. I think that we have to clarify a difference between Misfits, what's going on in Telford tonight, and also, the Jake Paul and Tommy Fury fight. Would you agree that's fair?
Yeah, because Jake Paul, Tommy Fury for me is a couple of novice professional boxers. Jake Paul's got a license, he was a professional fight. Tommy Fury, novice professional boxer, a couple of novices. Same as what you'll see on the undercards here, novice professional boxers. It's just that they got the profile because they've got the following. You know what I mean? They got the big crowd, they got the pay-per-view events, the main events status because they've got the big following. You've got to understand that. That's how it is. They're a draw. Just like you will get, you'll get a world title fight on sometimes at 7:30 in the evening because the champion and they're not draws, and you'd have fights that probably aren't as meaningful later on in the night on normal shows. That's how it's always kind of been. If you're not a draw, you kind of push further down the line. The Misfits stuff, I think it's just a different market. It's the YouTube. That is the YouTube market. That is the influencer market, celebrity market, entertainment. Some people find it entertainment, some people find it cringing. I mean, there's some of it which is great banter and what have you, and you think, yeah, it's all right, and then there's some of it you just look at it and think, what is this? Do you know what I mean? But again, these people have got big followings. If they chose to take up tennis, whatever other sport, their fans would watch them do that. It just so happens that they've chose to do boxing. And for me, those guys are kind of playing boxing. And while ever they're at their own level, none of them are shouting out your big name fighters and stuff like that. They're shouting out each other, which for me, that's fine. That's fine. That's what they want to do. It's the only equivalent of, I've said it before, it's the equivalent of like your mate in office who's deciding to have a white collar fight against somebody else in another office or whatever, and there's a bit of banter going off between them, and it's just that they're in a smaller, probably in a little hotel banqueting suite fighting in front of a few hundred people, whereas these guys, because of the followings, it is on TV, it is in an arena, but it's selling. So if it's selling to their market, that means that there's a niche, there's a demand for it, and while ever there is that, and while ever people are tuning in on that, it'll keep growing. If you don't want it to keep happening, don't comment on it, because you're giving it the traction. So if you're really against it, if it really does upset you, and you don't want to see this growing and getting any further, then instead of when it comes up and you see somebody jumping over a press conference table and starting a fight when they're having a face-off, and it just looks like, ugh. Well, instead of commenting on it, just scroll past, because the more you comment on it, that's what they're wanting, the more attention, so it'll keep on growing. But whereas if you just let it slide by, then if more people have that same view, then the less interaction it has.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, because I remember years ago, I'm talking like 15 years ago, a lot of my friends at the time, this is before like IFL days, used to fight on what was perceived as the unlicensed circuit, and a lot of them did that, and that wasn't, they were kind of, I'm not going to use the term of a semi-professional because there's no such thing, but I know that was always, but it was always used as unlicensed circuit, which it had its own kind of board, if you like, an own kind of system for that to take place. And did them everywhere. Like I remember, the unlicensed scene. It was big at the time, and I think like you're still drawing big crowds into. I'm not talking about like the O2 Arena and that, but there's a place in Essex called the Circus Tavern. A lot of my friends used to fight on that, but they trained as boxers. They were trained sometimes and sparred with pros, etc. But that was that. Then this white collar thing came on. I remember a couple of my mates doing the white collar thing. And I was like, what is white collar for? This was years and years and years ago, where effectively, yes, as long as it's the safety precautions are done and everything's kind of done to, like health-wise for a good standard or very good standard, then they're allowed to literally, John from the office was allowed to go and fight Phil from finance. Right, I don't know if you've seen that fight. It was a great three-rounder. But that was allowed to happen. But this was, I'm talking, like 10, 12 years ago that was happening. But now this is like a heightened version because of the people doing it and the fact that it's getting television exposure. It's suddenly like a bit of everyone's having their say about it.
That's exactly it, and this is what I'm saying. If it's fine for a couple of people in the office or whatever normal walk to do the white collar fights, you can't then turn around and say that these guys that are doing the misfits and stuff, that it shouldn't be happening. My worry is, and it's the same worry that I had with the white collar stuff, was what if one of them gets hurt? Because they're not athletes. They're not, there's a difference between training 6 weeks for a fight or a couple of months for a fight because you know you're doing this white collar event. There's a difference between doing that and being an actual athlete and training for months and months, years and years, year after year. So it's all fun and games until the matching's wrong, until you see somebody get laid out badly and it's not nice. And touch wood, so far, nothing's gone wrong. But ultimately, they're getting hit in the head. And although it's all fun and games at these press conferences, and even if it's the women that are slagging each other, hey mate, right? And even if it's the women in the skimpy underwear having a little bit of cat fight and stuff like that, it's all fun and games until they get in the ring and they start trading blows. And every time you get in the head, it's not good for you, right? It's not good for you. And touch wood, nothing ever happens, but the questions and the uproar will then happen if anything does happen. If somebody does get sent to hospital, if somebody does get, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but if somebody does get hurt seriously, this is why you can't, it's not fun and games. You can't play boxing, and there's a level of seriousness that's got to be taken about this. And that's why it's so important that the matching's right. It's not just a case of shouting out this guy out because you've got a big beef because he's got loads of followers and he's got loads of followers, or she has and she has. You just go in there and it's completely mismatched. It's got to have some sort of control about it because you're playing Russian roulette with people's lives.
Yeah, I think you make some points there in regards to that, in regards to kind of, with...
But we've seen it in the white collar where you'll see weight discrepancies and you'll just see that somebody has done some boxing in the past against some fella that's never boxed in his life and he gets absolutely wiped out, and it's like, wow, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. Now they've got the TV platform with the misfit stuff and it's higher profile because of your influences and things like that. That same thing could happen again if it's not run properly. And it's Sauerland's in it that's involved in it, so it's good that they've got people that do know the risks of boxing and people that have run boxing before, to not just in an event sort of capacity to make it look good, make sure there's some sort of control in the fights as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, it's in its own lane. I think they've created this series now, which is in its own lane for people if they want to watch it, not watch it. It is entertaining. I have to say that almost from like a WWE kind of point of view, it is entertaining. Some of the fights are actually relatively entertaining. Others are what they are. But I mean, look,
I'll be honest. I've never watched one yet, but I am going to go to. I am going to go to one of the shows because they're meant to be a good night out. My kids.
Oh, great night out. So, like everyone I've been to, it is a great night out.
I am going to go to one and just see what it is as a case of entertainment, not to look at the quality of the boxing, just to see what it's like. But like you say, it's got its own lane, and I don't see it's not professional boxing. It's entertainment for these people that want to do that and crack on. As long as it's run right, then crack on.
Absolutely. Right, Dave. Final one. Just a reaction from. I'm assuming you read Conor Benn's statement that he put out. His very long statement that he put out, explaining whatever he could explain to this point of this ongoing situation regarding his failed test. So, yeah, what did you make of the statement?
I don't know. I was hoping you was gonna not mention that. Mate, it's so confusing because I feel as though I get he's got this rage and he's attacking everything and everybody and this and that. And I see him where he's saying about how people have like doubted him and this that. You can't have a go at people for doubting you because you're saying that you've been declared innocent, but you haven't, because the WBC have given you because we all took piss and thought eggs, fucking hell. But then now the fact that he didn't come up with the excuse of the eggs, this 200, I haven't read the 270-page document, so I don't know. It's very difficult to comment properly. But this 270-page document didn't mention eggs. So what did it mention, and why did this 270-page document not be accepted as the reason for why it showed up in your system? Because they must have looked at that, if I'm reading it right, they must have looked at it and said, well, no, here's your excuse instead. That could have been eggs, this, let's look at your diet. Oh, yeah, eggs, right? So the months and the money that you've spent on this reason to clear your name hasn't been used to clear your name. So the judge in the WBC has given you a reason to get off, not your evidence that you've presented. So it's a bit fucked up. And it's the WBC, it's not your role to give some, right, well, we don't accept that one, but it could have been this, we'll go with that. It's not your role to do that. So when he's saying he's been declared innocent by WBC, you haven't. And you can't knock people for assuming that you've done something wrong, because there are 2 failed tests. Until we see this all this cloak and dagger, until we see the reasons, he's saying he's got scientific proof why they failed the test and everything. If we get to know that, then we can make a judgment on that. People can't make a judgment on that because they don't know the information. The only information that people have got are the facts that you failed a test on that date, you failed a test on that date. So people are going to go on that. Do you understand? And when you say it's, if you failed a test, then that's not like, it's not hearsay. So somebody says, oh, I've heard Conor Benn's failed a test. And if you jump on that bandwagon straight away, then yeah, I understand where he can be angry. And then it turns out it was just bullshit anyway. There was never any failed test. So I understand then. But if you've actually got failed test proofs there, and people are saying, you failed test, fucking, you've cheated, you can't be angry with people for that. Because the proof that they're seeing is the failed test. They're not seeing the proof of innocence. They're actually seeing facts. The facts are 2 failed tests. So that's what people are going on. So you can't be pissed off at him. This evidence that he's got, he's doing an interview with Piers Morgan.
What did you think about that?
But he's not gone to the board. So if the board are asking, I get that he's pissed off with the board, for apparently they were going to fine him or something for something else, and that's why, again, we don't know ins and outs. They were going to fine him for something that's not related, so he was pissed off with them, so he handed his licence in. But the board want to know, what is your reason for failing these 2 tests? This is what you're disputing it. What is your reason? It's gone to WBC, it's not gone to the board. Now he's going to Piers Morgan, still not going to the board. Give the board the evidence, put the evidence out there, let people know, let people see what your evidence is, and then people can make a valid judgment of all the facts and go, okay, right, yeah, no, you're a cheat, or, oh, right, okay, I can see that. But if you've spent all this money and you've got these lawyers and you've done 270-page documents and shit like that to prove your innocence using this, and then you give it to WBC and they don't use that, what the fuck was in that? Is that a waste of time? Is that bullshit then? And does that not actually prove your innocence then? And then so they think that the best ways to go about it is the eggs thing. Mate, I think it's a mess. And then to be quite aggressive in his first post with like fingers up and this, that, and other, I think it just rubs people the wrong way because you're like.
I mean, look, the situation, I think, in the last 7 days for the public more so, there are obviously people in this situation that know more about what's going on. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been said that probably maybe will be said not. But I think the last week for the public has become confusing with that WBC statement, first of all. And then what Conor was writing is there for us all to read about situations to do with testing, about his representative that wasn't allowed at certain situations, etc. So he's outlined all, like, in his opinion or from his standpoint, all the flaws. Yeah, it did make interesting reading, but it has made the situation, especially with his comments about the WBC and their previous statement, very, very confusing to the public. Because I mean, I had to read that 3 times. I mean, to get to what he's saying. What he's saying is actually quite direct. This happened. He's not happy with this. He's not blah blah. So he was quite direct in what he was saying. But yeah, it still leads to confusion.
So the thing is then, so the WBC have given him an out. Now let's look from Conor's point of view. So if the WBC are giving him an out, not using, if his reasoning for saying that Vada, they tested 3 times, it came back, so he's saying they tested his sample.
Yeah, overall, I think it had been tested 4 times.
But so when I'm saying that people don't know the facts, not only does Conor, the 270-page document, people need to see that to help with how we see him. Vada need to come out and say, why did you test something, the same sample, 4 times? Why did it come out, if he's right, why did it come out 3 times it's clear and on the 4th time it's not? So Vada need to answer questions. The WBC need to answer questions. Why are you giving somebody an excuse when he's saying, no, this is my evidence, this is what I want to use to clear my name, but you're saying, no, we're not going to accept that, but look into your diet, in fact it may be eggs. WBC have got no right, so they're either Conor's telling the truth and Vada are fucked up, in which case the whole testing system is fucked, right? And then that means that WBC, because it's part of their thing with a clean boxing program and everything, and that's their preferred choice, the WBC are covering up for Vada, in which case they're fucked. Vada have made a mistake, WBC are corrupt. That's what that's doing. So is that why the WBC are then saying, Conor, it's eggs, mate. There you go. So you've got to have an open mind to be able to look at this. Is why I can't tilt to one side, because I've got to look at an open mind and say, well, Conor could just, because the shit that he's getting, it could just go with the eggs and say, fuck yeah, WBC said eggs. But he's actually calling out the WBC for using the egg, because when it came out we all thought, Conor, fucking hell, eggs. But it turns out that it's the WBC that have given him that excuse. So he's calling out the WBC for giving him that excuse, saying, no, I've given you this. This is the reason. It's because of Vada, this. So I think Vada have to come out and explain themselves, and I think the WBC have to come out and clarify the situation. Why did you, when it's not your...
Use the term most likely in that as well.
But why are they saying... They're supposed to be just looking at the evidence and then deciding whether to ban him, not ban him, drop him out of rankings or what. But I just think on every part, they've all fucked up. I think Conor should have gone in front of the board, and I think he should still give them the board. The board can't do anything because
he's not licensed by the board currently, is he?
No, he isn't. But isn't it?
That situation, I do agree, that has to be resolved at some point. But I think Eddie Hearn's even said, hasn't he, that his next fight, he's likely not to be licensed, or it won't be in this country. So I think that while this situation is going on,
fuck you to the board. That's your evidence to say why I didn't cheat, right? Give the evidence to the board So they then see it and they know then, and then he can go, fuck yeah, I don't want to box for you anyway. But by not doing that, and nobody seeing what this 270-page evidence is, apart from a few of his paragraphs saying that this happened, that's in his statement, but then the WBC not accepting it. We need to know why the WBC didn't accept it. We need to know Vada come back with a response to this 3-4 testing fucking... I don't understand why they've tested the same samples so many times, and why, if it come back clear 3 times, why they tested it again. How many times do you have to test the same sample? And then why is 3 clear and then the 4th one not? Because then if he's telling you, then that something has happened there. It's just so much unknowns. It's very, very difficult, and because of that, and also because he's always been really aggressive about things and basically...
Do you blame him? Like, from Conor Benn's perspective, right? If Conor Benn, let's say Conor Benn, in people's eyes, they can have their opinion about whatever they think, whether he's innocent or guilty. But from Conor Benn's perspective, right, and you're seeing your name in social media, and if Conor Benn knows he's innocent, from Conor Benn's perspective, seeing that every day someone in boxing or whoever, fans, people on social media, just going for him every single day, then that rate, he's 26 as well, right? Whether that makes a difference, I don't know. But I don't blame that kind of... Sometimes on social media, I want to look at Conor and go, Con, come on, like, he bites too... Yes, he does, but he's use the word passionate in this situation, but very kind of a fiery person in general. So this kind of situation where his life's been turned out upside down over the last 6 months, I don't really blame that kind of reaction from Conor Benn.
No, I get that. I understand that, and I do understand. At the end of the day, we're human, and there's emotions are emotions. But what I'm saying is the one where he's saying he had a go at people for doubting him when the news broke and the test came. You can't. When he's talking about facts, the facts are he failed 2 tests. They're facts. They're there. Everything else is hearsay. Everything about this Vada with the 3 tests, 4 tests, whatever. Everything else is just. They're not. We don't know that they're facts. So nobody's coming out and saying everything. We're not seeing the whole reports. We're not seeing everything. But the facts are he failed 2 tests. 2 tests came back failed. That wasn't hearsay. So you can't. What I'm saying is, you can't blame people for assuming that because you failed 2 tests, then you did fail the test. For whatever reason, that's what we're trying to find out, and I understand that. But he can't be sour and be aggressive towards people like that have doubted him because they seem to fail tests. Because what does that mean? From now on, going forward, right? So from going forward now on, right? Everybody fails a test. You're then saying, "Oh no, mate, it must be something else you ate." Oh, so we never now assume that somebody that's failed a test didn't fail the test. We say, "Oh, it's the test's faulty straight away." What's the point in having a test? If you're going to have that attitude, the tests are there to catch cheats. Yeah. So how many other fighters take eggs? How many other fighters do this, do that, and how many other fighters are failing tests? If they're all clear and they're all clean, and then somebody gets popped for it, and then you just respond in the same way, "Oh no, it's not really a failed test." Yeah, they failed it, but it doesn't mean anything. But what's the point in having tests?
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, but from Conor Benn's side of that, yeah, like, if that's the situation that's happened, yeah, and obviously they've gone through this long legal process, yeah, to try and prove or whatever else, should he then turn around and go, well, this could open it up for other people to do this, but this is actually happening to him. From his side, this is happening to me. So he can't really be worried about what happens after that. This is his situation.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is you can't be aggressive and have a go at people for seeing that you've failed 2 tests and assuming that you failed because it's come back failed. It's come back that it was in your system, and then he says in his statement, well, even if it is in my system, it's only a trace. It doesn't matter if it's a trace. It's a trace that was in your system at the time of the test. It doesn't matter. It's like fucking. You can't just assume, oh, just 'cause it's trace, it wouldn't have made any difference. You can't say that. So you've been found with that in your system. Fact. And when he's saying that, even if it's in my system, it was only a little trade, you are saying, right, okay, it was in my system. The question is, why was it in your system? But if we don't know why it was in your system, but it is in your system, you have been found to have it in your system. You've failed 2 tests. So the people aren't wrong for assuming that you failed the test because you failed the fucking test. Problem is this cloak and dagger bullshit and the silence from Vada and the silence on the bullshit that comes from the WBC with what they're doing. That's what makes everything worse. This is evidence and everything. Hand it to the board so the board can see it and then tell them, fuck you, I don't want a box for you, but here you go. That's just to show you that I'm not a cheat. If that's his evidence where it's that strong, why didn't the WBC accept that evidence? Why did they come out with that? Is that because they're covering up for Vada? In which case they need going after. Either Conor's a cheat or Vada fucked up and WBC are corrupt as fuck trying to cover up Vada. Either way, it needs sorting. But is it going to get sorted? Are people going to... It's something that's big enough that needs to be sorted because if it is down to Vada that have fucked up on the testing, that's massive because that's supposed to be the go-to.
Well, what Eddie Hearn refers to as the gold standard of testing. So, I mean, you're right. If there is flaws in this process, which are quite huge flaws, if it's the case, then yes. And I do agree with you about the WBC and Vada need to be held accountable.
Got to be.
Should they be accountable? I'm not going to say...
Why haven't Vada come out? Why haven't Vada come out and spoke? So Conors turned around and said this about the testing. There's 3 of my tests. Why are you testing 4 times, same sample? 3 of the tests have come back clear, and on the 4th one, it's come back contaminated, it's come back failed. Why aren't Vada turning around and saying, well, no, we didn't test it 3 times. Here's our proof, blah, blah. Or, yes, we did, because this. And why did it come out with something on the 4 tests? They need to explain themselves, because they are the ones that they charge shitloads of money for testing. And if somebody's saying that about, they need to be answering them questions, because again, it's like every major fight, they're earning the money, they're getting the testing done and things like that. They've got fighters' careers in hand, so if they've fucked up, they need to be held accountable for it. And if they've fucked up, that means the WBC have covered for them. And it's one thing bringing out a fucking belt for every other fight and tarnishing the reputation of WBC, that famous green and gold belt. It's one thing tarnishing it through all that and just fucking devaluing it. It's another thing fucking covering up something as big as this. So if they've done that, then they need to be held accountable for.
David, listen, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. Yeah, that was we started off on tonight's fight night. Then went over to Misfits.
I didn't want to say anything.
What? That's all right. Well, all right.
Because there's no right. And when you don't know all the facts, there's no right.
It's difficult. You can give your opinion, etc. But without, like I said, even reading through these statements,
I like
it's
Conor
difficult.
Ben.
I know.
I've always liked Conor Benn, and it's genuinely that of all the fails and anything like that I've seen of fighters, I was like, that was gutted. Didn't come out. It's 2 fails. So you can't. I'm one of those where you look at it's 2 failed tests. So it's just how you see it. But then you start seeing other things. Like I said, you've got to see it from all points of view. But the fact remains is there's 2 failed tests. So it is what it is. It's not.
Appreciate your time. It is what it is, but it's not. David, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. We look forward to a good night here in Newcastle later on tonight, live on Fight TV. If you haven't got a ticket here at the Utilita Arena in Newcastle. And we'll get a little word of you after Stephen's fight tonight.
Cheers, mate. Nice one. Catch you later.
I'm going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife for saying completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.